All right, whenever you're ready, go for it.
Hey, this is Brad Nelson from debtfreedad.com, and you are listening to Vroom, Vroom, Veer with Jeff Smith. Hey, I'm here reminding you that education is great, but if you want to reach any of your goals, consistency is the one thing that you need to master more than anything.
So true. Well said, sir. All right, let me hit stop. I'll be right back.
Sounds good.
Are you ready to thoughtfully steer away from your revved up, frenzied, and far too often scripted life? Then welcome to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith, where he guides you down the road differently traveled by sharing unique experiences with guests who have managed to shift away from a life stuck on cruise control and veered their way into a more authentic and fulfilling one in all sorts of interesting and kind of remarkable ways. Get ready to Vroom Vroom Veer with your differently traveled road chauffeur, Jeff Smith.
Frank King, thank you so much for being on Vroom Vroom Veer and welcome to the show. How's it going?
I'm busier than a hooker at a four-way stop.
Ooh, that's pretty busy. I like it. So you are at, let's see here. Wait a minute. I've got it written down. Let me just read it. TheMentalHealthComedian.com. No.
Actually, mentalhealthcomedian.com.
Mentalhealthcomedian.com. So let's remove the. Mental, good. It's better. I like it better that way. All right, so let's take out the again. And I'll say it again. Take two. Okay, so you're at mentalhealthcomedian.com. So talk a little bit about what you're most excited about in your business today.
Well, let's see. Well, one of my clients who I thought was going to stiff me, actually.
Yes.
That's my coaching business. So you mean in the mental health field?
No, that's fine. Coaching, whatever. It's all one thing, right? It's Frank Incorporated.
Yes, but two different websites, as I tell my coach.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, no, you pick a lane.
Gotcha. Understood.
No, I got excited because 2 Fridays ago, I got a phone call, and it was the Ohio Construction Association.
Okay.
And they said, look, we had a meeting. We decided we want to have a suicide prevention speaker construction. And he goes, kind of a short fuse. It's 27th of February. So we're talking a month.
Right.
And somebody brought your name up. Yes.
Good.
And we checked out your website, and we want somebody who can speak on suicide prevention, who has lived experience, can teach us something. And we saw you're a comedian. That sealed the deal.
Amen.
Yeah, so that it works for me in a number of ways.
Yeah.
When I do I coach speakers how to make money speak.
Right.
And I hammer them. Pick a lane. Pick one problem to solve. Become the expert or thought leader, so that when somebody's looking for a speaker in your topic area, they don't want just anybody.
Right.
They want you. It's a long game, but occasionally like that,
Yeah.
They call and they're looking for. And then on Monday, I got an email from a speakers bureau.
Okay.
They said, our client asked if we could reach out to you, which is a great way to get in really good with the speakers bureau, that the client asked for you.
Yeah.
So I think I'm beginning to show up, on radar.
Yeah.
As the mental health comedian, suicide prevention expert, thought leader.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm most excited about, is I'm beginning to get that kind of traction.
You're finding a tier, as they say. You're getting a niche going on here.
I think the riches are in the niches. And I
totally.
I tell my speaker clients that, and it's the reason I only market myself on LinkedIn, because that's where my
that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
For coaching. Now, on the mental health comedian side, I do podcasts because that's really good for SEO.
Amen.
and Jeff,
yes,
and I tell my clients, look, don't do a podcast. Too much work. I'm a comedian.
Guest on podcast. Yes.
Be a really good guest, because they'll post it, you'll post it, you get twice the SEO value.
Totally. Yes.
Yeah. If you go to do a search on suicide prevention speakers dental, as in dentists.
Yeah.
You'll find on page 1 Google, I've got 7 or 8 organic listings.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's enough to give a young social media expert a hard on. because
Boing.
yeah, I mean, you're lucky to have one
You're right. You're
organic
right.
listing page one.
And you've got 7 on one page. That's pretty good.
7 on page 1, yeah.
7 on page 1. So
some
1 through
of it has-
7 is you, maybe. I don't know. We don't know.
And there's a couple there broken
It
up. a
doesn't
little
really
bit.
matter.
No.
7 on 1. That means you're ruling at least one term. So that's great.
Yep. So
for
that's why I believe the riches are in the niches.
Yeah.
Speaking wise, I only speak on. I mean, I have other speeches if you want to.
Yeah,
You know,
sure.
and I can do 45 minutes of comedy at your banquet. I can auctioneer your fundraiser.
Wow. Auctioneer. I like it.
One
Do
make
you
it too big,
juggle?
don't enough, too
If
big,
you-
too
it-
big, don't enough to-
If you juggle, you could get a job in Vegas real steady like.
I would shoot myself. No, I have a friend in Vegas.
Yeah.
Tyler Lincoln,
Okay.
amazing juggler.
Yeah.
And unlike most jugglers, most jugglers patter, originated in King Arthur's court,
Right.
a sudden burst of gravity. But Taylor's actually a great joke writer. He also wrote Night Show for a time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And he juggles, but and a really good juggler as well, but really good original patter. So
Yeah. I gotcha. So let's talk about that. So before you became suicide prevention speaker comedian,
Mhm.
you wrote for the Tonight Show as a comedy writer for 20 years.
Correct.
So how does somebody get a gig like that? What's the road to getting in the writer room at the Tonight Show?
Well, actually, I never got in the writer room, but
Oh, wow. Interesting.
but the road,
Yeah.
ironically, Jay Leno was the permanent guest host for Johnny.
I remember.
Joan Rivers made the mistake of getting her own talk show and not bothering to tell Johnny, so she got blown out.
Wow.
Gary Shandling was a substitute host,
Right.
fill-in host, but he took the not Larry Day. He took the Larry Sanders show. Was that it, Larry?
He did Larry Sanders. Yeah.
Yeah, the HBO show.
Right.
He got the HBO show. So he couldn't do it. So that left Leno. He was the one permanent guest host for Johnny, and Johnny was a bit mercurial. So he would tell the staff on a Friday night, "Hey, I'm taking next week off." And I guess after that many years, you can do that.
Sure.
Mondays were a best of Carson, so rerun, but that meant Jay had 4 nights, Tuesday through Friday, 18 jokes a night in the monologue. Pretty
Wow.
much had to come up with them over the weekend.
Wow.
So he started hiring road comics like me
Okay.
to under contract. You fill out the independent contractor paperwork. They give you a fax number. They called us fax writers back then.
Wow. That's neat.
And we wrote by fax. And I mean, I'd crank in 12, 24 jokes a day over the
weekend. Okay.
Yes. And I was, I'd get a couple on that week. And then when he got the job for real, when Johnny retired and NBC decided not to let him and they took Leno,
Right.
they kept some of the, a handful of contract labor writers on. And I stayed there writing for him until he left for CNBC.
Oh, wow. So you never made it into the room.
That was the dream. And there were guys who were fax writers. That's why I was pumping in 12 to 24 a day, just so show you could do that. Because there were a lot of comics who'd write a few and then another few and another.
Yeah.
But I was cranking out with the hope that someday I would be in the Writers Guild. And there were guys who made it from fax writer to the writers' room.
Interesting.
Unfortunately, I was not with them. But
That's okay. You're still getting
Yeah.
paid, so that's
yeah, you get $75 a joke and you never miss
Wow.
one.
wow.
And it's the first line in my bio, practically. It's the first line of introduction. I didn't realize until a speaker friend of mine said, "Frank, let me ask you something. Why is the fact you wrote for the Tonight Show for 20 years not the first line in your bio and your intro?" What? People care about that? Oh, come on, dude. You know a lot of people did it, but the rest of the world has no idea.
Yeah. Exactly. It's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah, it was. And
So
it's made.
let me ask you some dumb questions. That did you get paid for every joke, whether or not they used it or not?
No, it's all on spec.
Ah, wow. So they only pay you for a joke if they use it.
Yes, and it was $50 in the beginning, and he bumped it to 75.
Okay.
And it was back then. I'd go to bed early, so I would plop a tape into the VCR and tape the Tonight Show just for the monologue, and get up the next morning, kind of like the lottery, see if my number came up.
Ah.
And oftentimes there was a joke I had in my act that my wife hated.
Okay.
So I said, I'm going to sell to Linda. Leno, I think it's about. The joke was, I have one of those vibrating pagers. I carried in my front pocket. I call myself all the time. Hi, this is Frank. I'm not here right now. Please leave a message.
I love it. I love it. See, now that would go over well with,
And he did it.
Oh,
and
wow. Nice.
I told my wife, he did that joke.
I can't see Leno doing that, but okay.
Yeah. Well, I had 2 jokes in the very first show he did after he took over from Johnny. One was that this is not too long after the guy's name in LA. They beat the heck out of him. The cops did. Last name Rodney King.
Rodney King. Yes.
Yeah. So about that time, some guy got stung to death by bees in Texas, and I said, "Yeah, they weren't killer bees. They were just ordinary honeybees upset over the Rodney King verdict."
That's actually pretty good.
Thank you. And then at the time, Dan Quayle was vice president. He was in the news.
Yeah.
And somebody asked him about Murphy Brown. It was a sitcom.
I remember Murphy Brown. Sure.
In the sitcom, she got pregnant out of wedlock. And somebody asked Dan Quayle what he thought about that. And he goes, he said, I think that mocks the importance of fathers. And then he said, where would it have been without my dad? And that was the end of his sentence and the paragraph. Where would I have been without my dad? I added, my guess, Vietnam. And killed. Now, there's a Vegas one that Leno loved, but got absolutely nothing. They did a 60 Minutes, or somebody did a survey of graduation rates, Duke versus UNLV basketball players. And Duke graduated like 86% of its, male, Division I athletes. And UNLV graduated 17%.
Okay.
And asked a UNLV basketball player to comment on that. And he goes, gee, twice as many. I don't know whether the audience didn't get the math, but Leno's like, I'm at home going, oh, man.
Wow.
He really liked it. I love the joke. I thought it was a great joke.
Hey, you get paid whether or not they laugh or not. So that
somebody
at
asked
that
me
point, it doesn't
somebody
really
asked me,
matter.
do you get paid by the laugh? Oh, thank God, no.
Right.
Because there were nights, one-nighters. My wife and I, my girlfriend at the time, then my wife, December of 85, I said to her, I'm going on the road to be a professional stand-up comedian. Do you want to come along just for the ride? Figured she'd go, oh, hell no.
Right.
And she goes, yeah. So we gave up our apartment and our jobs and crawled in my tiny little Dodge Colt.
Wow.
We were on the road for 2,629 nights in a row, nonstop, no home. 7 years.
Wow.
Yep. And it was a great time. It was like 84 to 94, the comedy boom. And I worked with Seinfeld and Dennis Miller and Foxworthy and Ron White, Ellen, Rosie.
I love Dennis Miller. He was awesome.
Yeah,
Still is.
Yeah, well, he's gone to the dark side, but it was a business decision because there are very few, if you think about it, there are very few conservative comics. And so he saw an opportunity, which I'm sure, because he was very much more liberal when he was on HBO and then.
Right.
And I wrote for him.
I don't know if people remember, but he was on the color guy on Monday Night Football for a very brief period.
Yeah, and I think the mistake he made was
he probably said something controversial, right?
No, I think he tried to be a football announcer, and I think that's a mistake. I think he should have played the everyman.
Right.
When there's some kind of call on some kind of esoteric penalty on the field, I would have gone, okay, look, guys, I've been one of this for years. How does that work? What exactly did they do wrong?
Right.
You play every guy at home who's not a huge fan, and it's like the infield fly rule. I still have no idea what that is.
Yeah.
So I would, all right, listen, explain the infield fly rule to me, because I just don't, but I think he tried to be,
like an expert football guy.
Yes, and
color analyst.
Yes, and he had some great esoteric references. I mean, there were I don't know. I can remember people decoding what he said.
Right.
I wrote for him. He has a show on CNBC. I fax wrote for him for a little while.
Oh, neat.
And the fun thing was Leno set up punch, set up punch, set up punch, set up punch. And I try to write in the voice of the person I'm writing for. And Dennis Miller was set up punch, simile, metaphor, obscure reference. The one that got the farthest, got to the table, almost got on the show, was Linda Tripp.
I don't remember Linda Tripp. I remember the name.
She was the woman who encouraged Lewinsky to hang on to the blue dress.
Oh, wow. Holy cow.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm talking the old Linda Tripp, not the new Linda Tripp. They got the nose job and lost all the weight. I'm talking the old one.
Okay.
She came out on television at a press conference and she's crying. She goes, "I'm just an average American." "No, sugar, you're roughly 2 average Americans." You look like David Crosby in a dress. You make Janet Reno look like Xena Warrior Princess.
You got the voice down.
Yeah, that's what he wrote.
I know. I get it.
And I met him, and he's a real prick. I met him. He was until he had kids. Then he changed his tune. I met him at the Improv in San Diego. He moved to LA from Pennsylvania. He's having trouble getting stage time in LA, if you can believe it.
Wow.
So somebody at the Improv, the middle act, the feature act, was called away for some kind of photo shoot. And so they needed a feature act. So his manager saw the opportunity. Feature gets 25, 30 minutes. And it's an improv. So, send him down there, does his thing, and then the folks who own the Improv in San Diego report back. One of the best 25-minute sets I have ever seen in my entire, it was all his A material bullets.
Sure.
And Kevin Pollak, comic, very talented. He did a lot of impressions. It was like following the second coming. Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause right here. Jesus Christ. Now, Kevin Pollak doing some impressions.
Yeah, that's a bad follow, right? When somebody kills and you don't want to go on next.
No, I was working a cruise one time and they had a Beatles tribute band. And the cruise is chock full of baby boomers. They're holding up their phones, let it be, imagine it. And I had to follow them.
Ooh.
So anytime you have to follow something like that, I believe you have to cop to the fact you're having to follow something like that. So I said to the audience when I came out, another round of applause for the, whatever they call themselves, Beatle tribute band. I said, they tell you in show business, never follow kids, animals, or the Beatles. I said, I was so depressed about doing that. They had to come to my room and get me. I was hanging from my belt. Of course, they had no idea that I was suicidal. But wow. Yeah, I had to tell the Beatles, dear God.
There's, I wanted to bring up, because you're a writer and you also were depressed and you also had suicide attempts, maybe. I don't know. We'll get into that.
Yes.
Okay.
I can tell you.
Me too.
Oh, yeah.
Me too. We can share. But I'm recently reading this book. It's about kind of like science of being happier kind of idea.
Okay.
And one of the things they brought up was the science shows that consuming humor is good for your health. It's good for your brain, increases happiness, and in small doses is really good for you. Big doses, It doesn't matter, right?
Big surprise. Yeah, I hope you spend a lot on the study.
If you write jokes, the opposite is the case.
What?
Big surprise, Frank?
Yeah.
The science says that comedians and people that write jokes actually get less happy writing jokes, so let's talk about it. It sounds like, I've heard this too. Once you sort of master writing jokes, then it's fun. No. Okay.
No, I think I told my first joke in 4th grade. The kids laughed. The teacher was hysterical. She laughed. She was laughing so hard she had to excuse herself to go to the teacher's lounge.
Wow.
At which point I decided I'm going to be a stand-up comedian in 4th grade.
Nice. Ooh.
And
you had you written that joke, or was it off the cuff?
Well, No, it was off the cuff. What happened was my whole family's nearsighted. I mean, really nearsighted. I wrote a joke later that we're all descended from the people on the island of myopia, which was conquered over and over because they never saw the bad guys coming.
Makes sense.
It's only 20% of the audience gets, because only 20% of the audience knows what myopia is.
Right.
But I needed glasses. And this is 1964, maybe. And no fashion frames in the 60s.
No.
Girls had cat eye glasses, a couple of colors. Guys had what is now popular Ray-Ban, black plastic Buddy Holly kind of glasses. But I hated them because I was vain then, I'm vain now. And
right.
I didn't want to wear them. But the teacher knew that I couldn't see the board. So she decided that why I wasn't wearing them was because I was afraid of what everybody would say. So she decided probably a good idea to pull the Band-Aid off in a hurry. Get me at the front of the class. She turned me away from the class, had me put my glasses on, turned back to the class. She looks down at me. She goes, "See, you look intelligent." I looked up at her and said, "Yes, that would explain all the laughter." In 4th grade.
Yeah, that's good timing, good delivery.
Yeah, oh yeah. The whole family. My sister in 10th grade, there's a teacher, Mrs. Rice, or Miss Rice, I can't recall, Miss Rice, math teacher, I think, took a disliking to my sister at hello. I have no idea why, because my sister's harmless. So she put a problem on the board and then said, can anybody solve this? Well, my sister put her hand in the air. And Mrs. Rice systematically called on the 4 kids around her that didn't have their hands in the air. Finally, when she got to the 4th kid, in desperation, he goes, "Ms. Rice, Jane has her hand up." By which point, Jane's hand was down.
Yes.
So Ms. Rice goes, "Oh, Jane, I'm sorry. Did you have your hand up?"
Wow.
My sister said, "I did, but don't worry. It won't happen again."
I love it.
And my mother would tell you it never did. So the whole family is like that. Now, here's the thing about comedy. Comedy is tragedy plus time. So
right.
Comedians mind the tragedy in their lives. And so, but writing jokes makes me, especially a good joke, makes me ecstatic. And I had a heart attack. And the longer you do comedy, the shorter the time between the tragedy and the comedy. And right. I was doing comedy in real time having a heart attack.
Right. So you're telling jokes about having a heart attack as you have a heart attack.
Yeah. The thing about having a heart attack is when you arrive at the hospital, no waiting. They give you a little triage unit. And so the nurse is there. She's got a clipboard. And she goes, "Frank, I'm in a great deal of pain at this point. I got to ask you, no paperwork, obviously, Frank, but I got to ask you a question." I said, "Honey, I'm married, but I do love the way you think." She's laughing, trying not to laugh. She goes, No, your full name is Frank Marshall King III, but what do you like to be called?" I said through the pain, "Big Daddy." To this day, when I go back to Organ, Heart, and Vascular, I see somebody from that morning, "Hey, Big Daddy, how's it hanging?"
Big Daddy.
Big Daddy. Through the pain.
Yes.
Through the pain. No, it makes me happy to write. I'm not sure, because I think my major depressive disorder and chronic suicidal ideation is simply the flip side of my creativity, imagination, and comic ability. There's a reason when somebody heckles me that I literally don't have to think. A woman's leaving a comedy club one night, they're throwing her out. She's drunk. She's been disruptive. I'm turned away from her to take attention off of her as they're escorting her out. Right near the door, she starts to turn back. I'm thinking she heard something sounded like her voice because drunks are voice activated. And she screams, "F you." And without thinking, I just said, "Not even for practice." Standing ovation. And people came up afterwards. "How'd you think that up?" I didn't think that up. When you heard it, I heard it. I had no idea. I have no idea where that came from.
Yes.
But I think that's because same brain, same wiring.
Right.
That's just the way I tell people. I can teach you to write stand-up and perform stand-up. I cannot teach you to process the incoming information.
Right.
The way my neurodiverse brain does.
Right. Yes.
And I think that's the gift that goes with the curse. I think it's just, just the way I'm wired.
You've got the comedian brain, the comedian gene, whatever it is. That.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, depression and suicide run in my family. It's called generational depression and suicide. It's in my DNA. And so
Wow.
it's comedy.
Wow. So you think they're tied together?
Oh, yeah. I think one is just the flip side of the other. Because
Okay,
same brain,
gotcha.
same wiring. I mean,
yeah, well, it kind of fits too, because I always thought that I had comedian brain. I just didn't want to be a comedian. But I also was depressed and suicidal. So you might be right.
yeah. Well,
you might have something here.
I thought so because I did a TEDx talk because I kept bumping into people with a mental challenge. You also had some other superpower. And it's amazing how many people, famous, infamous, rich, whatever, talented, have, an issue. But look at what's his name? Kanye West. I mean, the politics aside, he's definitely one of the musical geniuses of his generation.
Sure.
Unfortunately, he's not also a public relations genius.
Right.
But I mean, and he lives, I do believe, with bipolar disorder. So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
That explains a lot.
Yeah. Bill Gates is dyslexic.
Right.
I mean, there's Elon Musk. Who the hell knows?
Well, he's, I thought he was autistic, somewhere on that autism spectrum.
Could be.
Musk. Yeah.
Yeah, it could be. But genius.
Totally.
I mean, I'm no longer on Twitter because of him, or X, or whatever the hell it is. But yeah, one anti-Semitic repost. I'm like, okay, I'm out.
Yeah,
you can go after anybody but the Jews, and I'm not Jewish.
Everybody knows that.
Yeah. They've been scapegoated enough. It's,
right.
Yeah. Anyway, but that's nonetheless.
If you're beating up on Jews, that's the no horse, two dead rule. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean,
even as a comedian, you're just being lazy.
Yeah, that's your default.
Exactly.
So, what's wrong? The Jews.
Exactly. What? Really?
Because the food is cold. They're to blame, is it? Yeah. So I don't know. I writing jokes makes me, I mean, maybe it's the creativity, not just writing jokes, being creative makes me happy.
Right. Yeah, I get it.
My process is somebody says, Frank, I need a tagline. Great. I'll sleep on it. So I go to bed, I wake up and I do a double shot of espresso. I lie back down in the dark and I see what my brain has come up with. And I mean, a friend of mine, Anthony Metten, he teaches communication and emotional intelligence, soft skills.
Right.
He goes, I need a tagline. So I'll sleep on it. 3:00 in the morning, I woke up and I had it.
Wow.
I texted him 3 a.m. Anthony Metten, soft skills, concrete results.
Nice.
He texted back, A, you woke me up, you bastard. And B, did you fucking think of this in your sleep?
But that's where all your best ideas come.
Yes,
like,
but
just immediately, like 3 o'clock in the morning. It's like you wake up and you bing.
Well, and
that happens to me too. Yeah.
A psychiatrist explained it to me. He said, Frank, here's the thing. If you're in that half awake, half asleep state,
yeah,
the blood is moving between the hemispheres of your brain more quickly and easily than during daylight when you're wide awake. He said, they think Einstein, it happened all the time, regardless of his sleep or awake.
Right.
Same reason that when you're in the shower, I get a lot of good ideas in the shower, and I ask him about that. He goes, well, Frank, the hot water's hitting the back of your neck. It's driving blood to the brain.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So there's a reason why those times of, and I work, well, that's why I lie there 45 minutes to an hour in the morning sometimes, is to honor that process and see what the hell.
What's coming through. What's coming through.
What's
coming through. Yes.
Yeah, I have a friend who worked on Madison Avenue for 25 years. And she wrote a book on advertising. And she goes, I need a title and subtitle. I said, okay, I'm going to bed.
Okay, I'm going to bed.
I'd have a dozen of each.
Wow. That's awesome.
And sent them to her. And when she woke up later, she sent me a text back. She goes, Frank, I worked on Madison Avenue 25 years. I've never seen anybody who could write this good a copy that fast.
Right.
It's a gift.
You've got a method.
Yeah, and I'm honoring the way my brain is wired,
Yeah.
and I try to focus on. And the reason I did mental with benefits was really for kids. If you can convince a child, yes, you have a mental disability, but here's something they probably haven't told you yet. You probably have some mental abilities your peers can't touch.
Right.
So why don't we treat the mental disability and then embrace, encourage, and enhance and
Totally.
energize whatever it is that they singularly.
Your superpower. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that was 2 years before 60 Minutes did a story that said 30 Fortune 500 companies are now hiring people on the spectrum for the one thing they do really well. I think, where have you been?
Yeah. So like whenever I like think about like what are my superpowers, right? That comes up a lot. Like if you know, not so much anymore because, you know, I think I've laid out like what I'm going to do for the rest of my life now.
Okay.
But you know, who knows? I'm open, right? But like I think another podcast guest said, think about all the times you got in the most amount of trouble. You were probably using your superpower.
Yes. Well,
And I went, oh, okay, let's think about that.
well, and one of mine actually is, and I didn't know this even existed until a couple of years ago. A friend of mine that had a podcast on imposter syndrome. And
Okay.
so I went on because I had no idea what the hell that was. I just went on to be a good guest, you know.
Sure.
He described it to me, you know. Well, Frank, you're accomplished. You got a PhD, master's, whatever. And that when you get your PhD, that day you're feeling like top of the world. Next day you're thinking, oh man, I don't think I deserve the PhD. I think someone's going to find out, and you know they're going to take it away from me.
Right.
And I said, well, dude, I got bad news for you. Apparently, I have reverse imposter syndrome. Because I am spectacular, and I'm just waiting for somebody else to figure that out. Yeah, my tagline, Jeff, is often wrong, never in doubt.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I'm working with a guy who's a personal development guy, and apparently, I'm reading his book, and I'm like, people have these problems. I had no idea. It was like one after another, and I'm thinking, you know, limiting beliefs. I said, look, Juan, I got bad news. I don't have any limiting beliefs. I could just, you know, I apparently maybe I'm from another planet. I don't know.
You're wired differently.
Yeah, you know, and one of the things he talks about is there's nothing really true or false, good or bad. It's all perception. And I thought, you know what? My favorite example of that is there's no such thing as bad weather, just people who are underdressed.
True.
So, yeah, because weather is neither benign nor malevolent. It's
just weather. It's just weather. Yeah.
So, I mean, I get it,
Right.
but I wouldn't be a good client for him.
Let's talk a little bit about what it feels like to be depressed. So like one of the things I had like several depressive states or episodes or periods, I guess. But like, I remember I was in Hawaii and I was like deeply depressed, suicidal. Right. And I would look at like people in elevators, like even like people that I knew. Right. And go, I want to go back. I want the blue pill. What the fuck did I do? How did the fuck did I get here? And how do I get back? Right. I want to be one of those people again. Did you go through something similar to like you're looking at like people that are obviously okay, not depressed or like, I don't know what just like not bothered by every little thing, right? Not going home and crying for hours when they're alone.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. All of that. So what were your thoughts?
That never crossed my mind.
Really?
Yeah, the only time something similar crossed my mind when my mom passed away, and I was at the YMCA playing basketball, and everybody was having a great time, and I'm sitting there thinking, don't you people get it? Nobody knows people are alive. That's the only time I had that sort of similar.
Okay.
And I because it's in my DNA, I live with major depressive disorder, which is depression.
Right.
And chronic suicidal ideation, which is relatively rare. It's not even in the DSM-5, you know, the diagnostic and statistical manual, big book of diseases. I've said, you know, I have chronic suicide or chronic suicidal ideation to a therapist, they've been doing it 20 years and they stare at me like a pig staring at a wristwatch.
Right.
They have no idea. What it means is for people like me and my tribe, the option of suicide is always on the menu as a solution for problems large and small.
Wow.
And I tell the audience, when I say small, my car broke down a couple of years ago. I had 3 thoughts. 1, get it fixed. 2, buy a new one. 3, hell, I could just kill myself.
Yeah.
Well, the benefit of doing that in a keynote, almost every time I've done that, there's been at least one person in the audience who has that. They have no idea it has a name. They think they're just some kind of freak and all alone.
Right.
I've had more than one person come up crying. A young lady at a college show. She came up, thanked me for the keynote. I said, "You're welcome." She goes, "I got to tell you, it made me weep." "How did it make you weep?" She goes, "Your story about the car, get it fixed, buy a new and kill yourself?" I go, "Yeah." She goes, "I've been having those thoughts all my life. I thought it was just me. I didn't know it had a name. I thought I was just some kind of freak. And then I hear you say you got it.
Yeah.
So I realized first time in my life I'm not alone, and I wept."
Wow.
That's the ROI.
That is the ROI. Yes.
And by the way, one of the reasons I don't kill myself, because I feel like George Bailey in the movie It's a Wonderful Life.
Yes.
I've been shown what people's lives like hers would be like if I weren't there simply to reassure her.
Right.
And if I took my own life, I could take some of those people with me who would never have a chance to hear me speak.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons I don't kill myself. I mean, there's a variety of reasons, but
Right. So you basically this is still hanging out with you. You're not.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Wow.
It's in my DNA. People go, "How'd you pick suicide as a topic?" Topic picked me.
Right. Wow. Not going away.
It's a superpower in that.
Yeah.
Somebody called me one day. I'd done something. People on the web took umbrage. It was, it wasn't lewd or, it didn't involve children. It was just something I'd done business-wise in comedy. And I mean, the trolls came after us. I had changed my home phone number, shut down a couple of social media accounts for a while.
Right.
And the guy called me and he goes, "Look, I know what you did. I know where you work out. I know what time you work out. I'm coming to kill you." I said, "Okay, listen, that's fine. But there are some things you need to insert into your mental math before you do that. 1, I've been trying to do that for 60 years. No luck yet. 2, I don't want to die, but I'm not scared of it." So, I mean, do you really want to take on a guy who has absolutely nothing to lose?
Right.
He didn't show up.
He was just trying to scare you.
Yeah, and I doubt he would have shown up anyway.
No.
But it's like it's like Mel Gibson in the first
Meltdown? Or
with Danny Glover, the first Lethal Weapon.
okay.
When he's in the convenience store and the guy's robbing and he grabs the gun and puts it to his forehead. "Pull the trigger. Go ahead and pull the trigger."
Yeah.
Because he's depressed about his wife passing away or something.
Right.
Yeah, that's where I am. No, pull the trigger.
Right. Please, you're doing me a favor.
One of my superpowers is I have really detailed and daydreams, because I explained one of my daydreams to a friend of mine, because I have, it's in color and I have dialogue, I've got blocking and lighting, I have sound bites for the media when we get done.
Wow.
And he goes, "Dude, I got to get better daydreams." Yeah, because you're in a convenience store, somebody pulls a gun, and you do something like Mel Gibson did, and the guy goes, "You're crazy. Thanks for noticing." But I'm always a hero of my own story. Get the gun away from him, kill him. And of course, they asked me, "You killed a guy." "Yeah, well, good guys 1, bad guys 0. You got a problem with that?" The king of the sound bites. That's all in my, my little daydream world.
Right. Wow.
Well, and I'm not the only one who does that, because I'll go in someplace like I was in Walgreens, and I'm back there at the back of the store by the pharmacy, and I'm thinking, suppose somebody came in and, stuck up the place. The guy's got a gun. So I thought, I know. So I went second aisle over. It's where they have the liquor and wine. And, they got some champagne bottles. Got a nice handle on it, really thick glass.
Yeah.
I would grab 2 of them, and hold them behind my back, go up the front counter and just lock him with it.
Clong.
Yeah. Or if I'm in the 76, I would take the cup of coffee I'm making, get over here. I'm making my coffee. Hang on. So I make the coffee, but don't put a lid on it. So I'll walk over, and of course it's piping hot.
Yeah. Scalding.
Splash. And I don't kill him in this one, but somebody goes, well, tell me about that. Hey, the best way to handle a guy with a gun is another guy with a strong cup of coffee.
There you go.
So it's just the way but I like to plan. When I go someplace, I'm looking at the exits. What am I going to do if something, my mother, I think she had the same issue because she would never sit in a restaurant with her back to the door, and she's not Italian.
She's not Italian.
Yeah, you're Italian.
I get it. Yeah. I get it.
So it's something I live with all the time. And the depression for me, it feels like I have a 3-day cycle, been through it many times. It feels like on the first day, somebody's turning the force of gravity out. Harder and harder to put one foot in front of the other. Second day, it bottoms out. Third day, I could feel the gravity being turned back down. So that's kind of my cycle. And I used to say I fight depression, but that's not true because I can't win.
Right.
So
Okay.
I think in the Aikido approach, Aikido is a martial art where you blend with your enemy's energy or
You work with it.
Yeah. So I think of it as a wave. I catch the wave of depression on my surfboard and I just ride it, go with the energy.
Right.
Until the wave breaks in 3 days and I'll be fine.
Right. Wow.
But rather than spend energy trying to push back against it.
Yeah. Right. I get it. Wow. Yeah. So when I was depressed, I had a security clearance because I worked in a skiff.
Yeah.
You know what that means. So anyway, they frowned on people with a security clearance being suicidal. That was frowned upon. So if you made it known that, you had a mental health issue, you wouldn't have your clearance for a while. It would get suspended. So all of my suicide plans had to include, if it doesn't work out and I'm not dead, I have to get up and go to work. So I did.
Do this. Tell myself, oh, darn, go to work.
That's right. Try. I would say if you really want to, if you're committed to dying and then it doesn't work out. So I took rat poison. And
Arsenic.
Well, I don't know. I don't want to get too detailed. I've already been down that road. Let's just say I mixed up some rat poison pellets in ice cream and I ate that. Okay. And the next day I went to work. So that was a really bad day at work.
Yeah.
Thanks for the face. But what it did was I think I got to what I like to lovingly refer to as the fuck it stage.
Oh yeah. I like ice.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's a book, one of the characters in the book, fast forward and fuck it. Just fuck it.
Yeah,
I know
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like, I survived rat poison. Now that inspection that I was dreading at work doesn't really seem like a big deal.
Well, and
so surviving suicide can change your life,
Well, during the pandemic, it turns out that I did a keynote online on Zoom called social distancing and staying sane. Don't worry so much about your mentally ill friends. Because my mentally ill friends locally and I realized, because we all had solid self-care plans.
Right. Okay.
We were sailing through because we wake up in an uncertain world every day.
Gotcha.
And so
you didn't mind lockdown so much?
No. I gotta stay away from people.
You kind of were pre-lockdown. You were locked down before it was cool.
Yeah. So they would call me up, and somebody called me and goes, "Hey, they're worried about me because I'm mentally ill."
Right.
And so, how you handling the pandemic? I go, look, I've had 2 aortic valve replacements, double bypass, heart attack, 3 stents. I have 2 mental illnesses, and I lost to a puppet on the original Star Search. This is not the worst thing that's ever happened to me.
Amen.
Yeah. I mean, I've totaled a couple of cars. I've been through those heart surgeries. I mean, the last time I had a heart surgery, the guy said 10% chance you're going to die. okay. And it took 11 and a half hours to replace the replaced valve.
Wow.
I mean, it was ugly.
How do
But,
you end up there? I mean, where does that start? Does it start with the valve replacement or does it start with a heart attack?
No, the valve replacement, my dad had, they believe, a bicuspid aortic valve instead of a tricuspid, the way it's supposed to be designed.
Oh, so you had one of those congenital. Yes, that's a hard
congenial. I had a congenial disease.
word. It was very congenial.
It was very congenial.
Yes.
Yeah, so I got that from him. And I got the mental illness and the cholesterol of a deep fat fryer from my mother.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah, it's just a bad hand, DNA poker. It was just
Gotcha.
So the valve job, my dad died at 40. So at 39, I had my valve replaced. And
So
then
no heart attack. You just went in as a
no,
maintenance
but
thing.
I mean, it was if I
If you didn't have
ran
it,
for
right?
God's sake, it would hurt. It got
Oh,
to the
wow.
point where
Oh wow.
even if I walk fast, and so I told people, look, I could be in the middle of the street and there's a truck coming. If I run to the next curb, I'm dead. If I stay there, I'm dead. So why work up a sweat?
Why worry about it?
Yeah.
Duck and hope for the best.
I would walk to the store because we live near this little shopping area, and every time my wife heard sirens when I was walking to the store, I was like, oh shit. So I had it replaced, and I got a human valve replacement from a donor, either a cadaver or an attorney who wasn't using it, and that lasted 18 years. Yeah, 18 years, and then I got a mechanical one to replace that, which should last. People go, well, the mechanical valve lasts you the rest of your life. Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty close. Click. But it's doing just fine.
Excellent.
So-
That's good to hear.
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting ready to do my 5th bodybuilding contest in July.
Really?
16 over bodybuilding.
Wow.
Yep, all true natural. They polygraph you beforehand, urine test you after, make sure you're not doing some banned substance.
Okay.
Well, I always wanted to do that, but I figured I'm really slightly built. I've got really thin, bones. It's years of inbreeding, and so I thought after 60, I bet everybody's going to give up. And sure enough, pretty much there are very few people over 60 that still bodybuild.
Right.
So, yeah, so
It's a good idea. It's a good idea.
My self-care plan, I exercise every day.
Yeah. It's not a bad idea. Get sunlight, do some workout, take some walks. Yes.
Yeah, and I intermittent fast. I'm on the keto diet since 2018.
Keto diet is smart. Intermittent fasting, smart. Yes,
Yeah.
I've been combining those. So, like, one of those doctors on the Tim Ferriss show was like, so if you have already gotten into the habit of skipping breakfast and maybe just having coffee, if you make lunch keto friendly, you're basically in keto mode all the way up until you have your first carb. I was like, that's a really good idea. I like eggs and cheese and meat. I just have an omelet for lunch or something.
I've been doing the combination of the two, and it's February, so I'm eating once every 48 hours.
Nice.
Mm.
Whoa. That's awesome. Holy crap.
At 66.
Wow.
So,
that's impressive.
but again, I was in the gym anyway for my cardio, for my health, mental health. And I thought, well,
right.
if I go on the keto diet, intermittent fast, I can,
That's the one thing that, as advertised, works. You don't really have to do anything and you just lose weight. Right? It was amazing. Money. Yes.
You save money.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I have that's one of my superpowers is the ability not to eat.
That's good.
My workout partner, I've done 5 days in a row, not eating.
Nice.
And my workout partner goes, man, you are stronger on day 5 than you were on day 1. You know what I think? I think they've been feeding your ass just to hold you back.
Ain't that the truth?
Like my kryptonite.
Right. So
we only got 3 minutes left because another client at the top of the hour, Jeff.
Right. We have to wrap up. So tell people how they can best get in touch with mental health comedian Frank King.
LinkedIn. I got a huge presence on LinkedIn.
I will put LinkedIn in the show notes.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, LinkedIn called me. I got so much traction. LinkedIn called me, and I said to the woman, I didn't think LinkedIn had a phone. They wanted me to contribute to an article on how to become a keynote speaker. I said,
Oh,
yeah,
wow. Hell
would
yeah,
you like
you
to?
want to do that. Yes.
Yeah. I said, after I got done self-pleasuring, I said, sure.
Wow. That was quick. Thanks,
Well,
Frank. This has been a blast.
Yeah, man.
I
Well, send
appreciate
me a link and I'll have my young man post it all over my social media.
I will, of course. All right. You have a good time and on to the next thing.
Yeah. I'm going to go make myself some rat poison ice cream.
Don't do it. It doesn't
I
make
think
for a good day at work.
I think that's Ratty Road, not Rocky Road.
Ew. The next day is worse than the eating it.
Oh, God, man. Oh, yeah.
All right, brother. Take care. I hope we saved a life. All right. Bye-bye.
Yeah, I bet you we did.
I bet you we did. Take care, brother. Bye-bye.
Thanks for taking the time to ride along with us on another episode of Vroom Vroom Veer. For podcast info and show notes, be sure to head over to vvveer.com. That's VVER.com. Man, that's fun to say. And we'll catch up with you next time here on Vroom Vroom Veer.